Yeah. Sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry, but I guess you know now. Baby, I took a half and she took the whole thing. Slow down. Baby, we took a trip, now we on your block and it's like a ghost town. Baby, where did these niggas be at when they say they doing all this and all that? Tired of beefing you bums, you can't even pay me enough to react.
What's the deal, y'all? Bredisode 13 is here. You feel me? What is this? Bredisode, I want to say 4 of season 2. So this is lit. We moving at a good motion. You know, a month into the season. So that's real dope. So what we going to talk about today is Pixar. You know, I grew up with Pixar. So this is nothing to talk about. This is the greatest animation studio ever. And DreamWorks is second. You know, DreamWorks also has Shrek, other things in there, all that. They have a lot. DreamWorks has a lot of cool movies like Kung Fu Panda and stuff. But we're going to talk about Pixar today. Because Pixar is a very interesting animation studio. And I'm going to talk a lot about it today. Pixar is bought by Disney. It has a lot of movies. If you were born in the 90s, you definitely grew up on a lot of the Pixar movies. I'm just going to list the Pixar movies that, you know, really... I'm going to list all the Pixar movies. So, Toy Stories 1 through 4, Bug's Life, Monsters University and Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, The Incredibles 1 and 2, Cars 1 to 3, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, Brave, Inside Out, The Good Dinosaur, Coco, Onward, Soul, and Luca. And Luca just came out. I think it's on Disney Plus, so you can watch it on there. That's the only one out of all those that I haven't watched. I watched every single one of them except for Luca. But I heard Luca's good, so I'm definitely not trying to shoot down Luca. But, you know, I know that we have all noticed different, like, Easter eggs or, like, hints in each of, like, the Pixar movies. You know what I mean? Like, the one that I really have in my head is the gas station Dinoco in Toy Story 1. Also being a sponsor for one of the cars in the movie Cars. Like something like that. It's always something. Every Pixar movie has something connected to it. So what I wanted to talk about in the podcast today mostly is the Pixar theory. And if you know what it is, that's dope. This is something I learned years ago. I've been on the Pixar theory for a cool minute, but I just wanted to let, you know, the audience know about the Pixar theory because I feel like this is a really cool theory, and this is something that, you know, anyone could really listen to. You know what I mean? Like, you know, anyone could follow on, and especially if you grew up during the era of Pixar and you've seen everything, you know, like the classics. You know what I mean? So I think this is really cool just to really look at and see the vision that Pixar has with their movies, because I forgot who the person was, but they wrote a whole article on the Pixar theory, and I think Pixar confirmed it. Like, yeah, this is something that we're trying to, you know, convey in our movies. So this is actually like something that Pixar has actually, you know, advocated for, this theory. So I'm actually going to just talk about it in a timeline. So really, Pixar is a whole timeline. And somehow, some way, human interaction plays a huge part within this timeline. So just bear with me. So the first movie is The Good Dinosaur. That's how it all starts off, like 65 million years ago, something like that, right? This is when a dinosaur meets, you know, a young little caveman, and the dinosaur is like very intelligent, and it helps. I kind of forgot what the movie was all about, but I know like a lot happened, and the dinosaur trying to take the kid home or something like that. But they work together and they build like a good bond with each other, and the kid finds his family in the end. Okay, that's smooth. You know, I haven't really gave too much about the timeline and the theories and stuff. So just bear with me when I talk about the stuff. So next is the movie Brave. So Brave is about this princess in Scotland, I believe, and she was ordered to be married. She doesn't want to be married. Her parents want her to get married to these guys. She doesn't want to get married. She gets into it with her mom, and she meets up with this witch. This witch turns her mom into a bear. The princess says, "Oh, I want this, happening." So the witch turned her mom to a bear. So the whole movie they try to figure out how they could get her mom back into her like original form. But there's a thing in the movie where there was a bear that actually had I forgot who it was, but it was somebody who was that the witch turned into a bear in the past. And you have 24 hours. Basically, I forgot the movie. Golly, I know that you only have a certain amount of time to change the person back from a bear to their original human form. And there was someone else in the movie that, that they didn't get turned back into their original form. So they just stayed as a bear. So now there's probably other animals in this timeline that were changed from humans into animals. So just keep that in mind. Just keep all this in mind. Everything I'm saying has something connected, so please stay with me. So the next movie, so years and years and years, The Incredibles come out, right? So this is when humans have some super strength to them. I don't know what's happened. The government has probably gave us some powers, a certain amount of us powers, and now we're killing each other off because we don't even know how to use the fucking powers. So this is something I would, want to, check in on in the storyline, because this is all about animal intelligence, artificial intelligence, and then that's really it. Artificial intelligence and animal intelligence. So at the end of Incredibles, really not in the end, but what is really prominent in The Incredibles, the first one, not the second one, is artificial intelligence. Because who's the bad guy in that movie? Golly. The villain in the movie is really good with technology, and it shows at the end of the movie that the technology could turn against you and hurt you. So just remember that. Artificial intelligence in that movie. And now that brings us into Toy Story 1 and 2. So Toy Story 1 and 2 shows that artificial intelligence is something that, that is real. You know what I mean? Toys are talking. So that's really crazy, right? So they, figure out that they can't live without humans. You feel what I'm saying? So they are just trying to be with their, owner, I guess, and get that human interaction, right? They're not, you really see it a lot in Toy Story 2 that they don't like to be separated from their owners. Who's the penguin Wheezy does not want to get separated from their owner. You feel me? So that's just crazy right there. And they have this obsession with human interaction. That's what the artificial intelligence has. You feel me? So, and there's this movie called Finding Nemo, right? And Finding Dory. We know these movies. Classic Finding Nemo. And we see that animal intelligence plays a factor with their human interactions. So just keep noticing that in each of these movies that there's human interaction with like artificial intelligence or animal intelligence. So in Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, you see that the animals like develop intelligence, parallel to humans. You feel me? So they like start getting smarter and smarter. Like even Dory seems like, someone who always has a short-term memory. Dory knows how to interact with whales. Nobody really knows that because I remember the main character, Marlin, was like, you don't know how to talk to whales, and for sure knew how to talk to a whale. So Dory is very intelligent. So that's wild in itself. So now we're going to move on to the next movie, Ratatouille. And Ratatouille, you can see that this rat is really like obsessed with the human culture, wants to be a chef. And the more and more he's like involved with human culture, the better he is as the chef. So you can see that like it's, animals are like thriving off of humans and their interactions because Remy became the chef and did all this through human interaction. That's crazy, right? So just keep all that in mind. So Toy Story 3 is the next in this timeline. And really, I don't really have much to say, but there's this thing or a corporation that we're going to be getting into called B&L, called By and Large. That's when it gets first introduced in all these movies, is Toy Story 3. And you start to notice By and Large is when Buzz Lightyear gets into it with the bad guys in the movie and they change like his settings. And if they open his back and you can see that his battery was By and Large, B&L. And I just want to keep, y'all to keep that, in mind. You see a link between B&L and artificial intelligence. So just keep that in mind. So the next movie is Up. So now you're seeing a little bit of animal interaction with the callers and how attached Doug was to the main character of that movie. How he was so attached. He needed human interaction. You know what I mean? And another thing I wanted to point out is By and Large, B&L was also the construction company taking over the area of the main character's house. I forgot the main character's name. Please, bear with me. So remember when he gets out of his house and hits that dude in the head, remember that construction company was By and Large. And you could just see from that area that By and Large is taking, more and more of that area. It's taking all that area away. So just remember that. So now the next movie is Inside Out. So now it's showing the source of energy is human emotion. And, human emotion and human memory is like a big thing. It shows like how the emotions react. It shows how things could get lost and forget, you forget things in your memory. For example, like the next movie in the timeline is Coco. It shows that afterlife plays a huge part in like human emotion and how we like, process like human spirits. So I looked it up on a website and it talked about Coco. The Land of the Dead, obviously, that's what it's about. And possible hints of how human energy transfers itself in the afterlife too. So that's crazy that it could do that too. And that plays a big part in the next movie in the timeline, Soul, how that plays in the afterlife, how human interaction and human emotion plays a fact in afterlife. So now the next movie, WALL-E. Now you're probably thinking, we just went from Soul, humans, Coco, humans, Inside Out had humans, Up had humans, Toy Story had humans, Finding Nemo had humans, Ratatouille had humans, and Toy Story, all these movies had humans. All the way from Good Dinosaur all the way to Soul. And now we're getting into WALL-E? and cars and all this stuff. Like, what was the change? It's really not, WALL-E wasn't the next. It's really Cars, but WALL-E does play a factor. But you're going to see, but why I say that about Cars. So Cars 1, 2, and 3 are really the next movies after Soul. So you're probably tripping like, what the heck? What happened? I'll tell you what happened. By and large, took over everything. By and large, took over everything like we saw in Up. By and large, that corporation took up everything in Up. So and they were polluting the world. So the humans didn't think that they could stay there anymore because the artificial intelligence was taking over. A lot of things was happening, and they had to leave. It was a lot of overpopulation, probably. It was probably a lot of things. There's probably going to be another Pixar movie that probably fills in why people left Earth. But people obviously left Earth because you saw it in WALL-E. So that's why I say WALL-E is a little bit before Cars, because it does show that humans were living on this like huge spaceship, looking for a new home. So even though Cars is next, WALL-E does give a hint on that humans are alive, but they're just somewhere else. So Cars, you see a lot of like cars interacting with each other, more artificial intelligence interacting with each other. However, a big hint, there's no humans in this world. So are these cars really going to live? Because you've seen in movies like Toy Story and, animal and artificial intelligence, you see that there's a lot of human interaction and how they have so much joy and more passion, and they like thrive in their life a lot more with humans. So you see in this Cars era that they start to die out. Even though you don't really notice it as much, you see in, I think, Cars 2 that the fuel and energy of Cars is like depleting. It's getting worse. So, years later, the years come that the era of Cars is over. Everything's done, and now the whole world is polluted. Now that's the bad part. The whole place is polluted and it's bad. So that's when WALL-E comes into play. So if y'all don't know what WALL-E's about, WALL-E is this like garbage robot, and it's like one of the last in the world, and they're supposed to clean up the world because it's polluted, but WALL-E has other things. It's more interested in like human trinkets, human accessories. It's more obsessed with that. So you start to see that human interaction, even though WALL-E doesn't interact with humans, WALL-E's obsession on the human culture helped the robot live. So that's like crazy, right? So it meets Eve, and Eve is trying to, see if the world is okay for humans to come back to. Obviously it's not. But at the end of the movie, you remember that WALL-E plants like a tree of some sort, and it grows. So Earth is okay to live on, right? I would say Earth is okay to live on. Sort of. So that's what goes into the next movie, Bug's Life. So remember that tree in Bug's Life? That tree is supposed to be the plant that WALL-E put into the ground. So this is probably like thousands of years, probably a couple hundred years later, Bug's Life comes in, right? You see that bugs and animals are creating their new society, and they're rebuilding a lot of things. Now we're seeing animal intelligence come back again, and they're a lot more advanced. They are creating like literally their own society. They're like living like humans, basically. That's really it with A Bug's Life. Now, the next push is Monsters, Inc. and Monsters University. And you're probably like, what the heck? How you go from bugs to monsters? So this is what you think. Once you plant that tree and already in a polluted land, things are going to get a little modified, a little, mutated, because it's still polluted. It's not going to leave anytime soon. So people start getting polluted, animals start getting polluted, a lot of things start getting more polluted and mutated and stuff. So you turn into monsters. And you see in Monsters University and Monsters Inc. that they're obsessed with harnessing human energy. The whole basis of Sully's job is to put fear into people and not gain their fuel, their energy, so they could survive. So in their world, they need to survive off human interaction. That's crazy. So throughout this whole time, animal and artificial intelligence have to live off human interaction. So you see in Monsters Inc., they have to live off human interaction. Wild. So, I scratched my head. Ooh. You see that already. Now let's go deep into the movie. Sully meets. Let me just. This is my idea about Monsters Inc. I think that everyone knew that they were traveling back in time. That's the thing. They were going back in time to harness this energy. Obviously, because where else would they find humans? So they were going back in time to harness this energy. So the reason why they didn't want the monsters to touch anything is because they didn't want to alter the past so it could change their present. If that makes sense. Like a butterfly effect. They don't want to change anything. So when that guy had that 2319, he had the little sock on his back and they shaved him up and stuff. That was to put fear into all of them so they wouldn't have to touch anything there. So a butterfly effect doesn't happen and their world gets changed. So just remember that. So Sully meets Boo, right? You would think that interaction would cause a butterfly effect, right? But it didn't. We don't know yet. There might be a movie after that goes along with the timeline. But we know at the end of the movie, nothing will change. Because if he met Boo, a lot of things would have been changed. You know what I mean? So when he met Boo, nothing happened. So they went through the whole situation with Boo. And, he got Boo back home. Shredded up the door, saw her one more time. But he's not going to keep seeing her forever. So Boo has an obsession with Sully. Boo is like, I need to find this world now. So Boo starts traveling the world and looks for magic of some sort or ways to, find this world. And this is what the end of this theory, goes into. That Boo is actually the witch in Brave. Sounds crazy, but hear me out, y'all. It sounds crazy, but please hear me out. If you notice that in Brave, the witch has a huge obsession with bears, which is definitely very parallel to what Sully looks like. Sully definitely looks like a bear. And that's what the witch is obsessed with, turning people into bears and shit, So just remember that. And then the witch also had a carving of Sully in her little, lair or whatever she was living in. So it's stuff like that. That witch is Boo. That witch is Boo growing up, looking for that era of time to find Sully. So the reason why, and this is another part of the theory, the reason why there's so many Easter eggs in all these movies, it's Boo traveling in time to put Easter egg hints so things could follow in place for Sully to still be alive in the later years. So let's say there's a scuba mask, a scuba diving mask somewhere, and someone picks that up and they become that scuba diver to pick up Nemo. To pick up Nemo. Right? It's just stuff like that. We don't know. I really don't know if that's a part that's true. I've read that part, that Boo is traveling through time to put Easter eggs so this timeline can still stay intact. That's wild to say, but yeah. So essentially, this whole theory is off human interaction and how artificial intelligence and animal intelligence feeds off human interaction. Because we've seen that the world ended because there was no human interaction. And when humans came back, they got deformed or whatever and mutated and stuff and turned into monsters. And these animals turned to monsters, whatever it was. There has to be another link. There's going to be a lot more Pixar movies that come out so we could, see how this timeline works. But this is what we have so far. Well, but we as people have so far. So this is kind of the theory that we're like moving off of the movies and all that. Cool little timeline so far. So we're just waiting for more movies to fill in those gaps, because obviously everything I told y'all probably thinking like, okay, he's not crazy for thinking like this, but there's still like some off things about it. This is what I'm telling y'all. Just wait. There's about to be like 5 to 6 Pixar movies within the next 3 years. I looked it up on Wikipedia. There's like 2 coming out next year, I think. And there's going to be a couple more coming out within the next couple years. I think it's 2 each year. So just watch out for it. So definitely, stay, on track about this. I wanted to give y'all that because I feel like we see a lot of Easter eggs in these Pixar movies. And I just want to give y'all a theory on what that was about. So essentially, all this is based off on human interaction and how artificial and animal intelligence thrives from human interaction and human emotion. That's lit, right? That was a lot of explaining. Oh my gosh. Hopefully I explained it like right for y'all. It's a lot. But if you want to learn more about the theory, you can definitely look up the theory on pixartheory.com. They have a whole website on it. There's this people called Super Carlin Brothers on YouTube, and they like explain everything. There's a lot more theories in Pixar than you think. They will explain everything, and they won't bullshit. These brothers will definitely give you the real. They will give you facts on why something is something. You know what I mean? So definitely, look into that. Because what I explained to you was just a little bit of a whole world of theories in Pixar. Because Pixar has a lot of Easter eggs. So definitely tap into that, But yeah, pixartheory.com and Super Carlin Brothers on YouTube. So now I'm going to get into my last segment of the show. Y'all already know what it is.
Weezy out of here. Weezy out of here.
This is Hot Questions for me, because it's me on the show for the day. Next week is going to look a little different. You feel me? So definitely I'm going to talk a little bit on classic Pixar movies. So what is a classic Pixar movie? Is it the old? Is it the new? To me, I think it's the presence of the movie, and if we're still going to be talking about it in 10 years. So I already told y'all the list of Pixar movies that we have. I honestly believe Toy Story 1 and 2 and 3 are classics. The first 3. I'm not going to say the fourth one. I don't think we're really going to talk about that within the next 10 years. I think Toy Story 1 and 2 are definitely things to talk about. People might argue 3, but I would say it is because it kind of like tied everything together. And then, shoot, I cried when those toys almost died. I really thought they were going to die. I was like, wow. I think A Bug's Life is a classic. Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, Incredibles 1. Now, these are the tricky ones. It's Cars, Ratatouille, WALL-E. I think Up is a classic. I even think Coco is a classic. Because I think that was the most different Pixar movie, because I feel like that was the first Pixar movie to talk about the afterlife. And then obviously Soul came through years later. But it gave another perspective on Pixar movies. You know? I think that was pretty cool. I honestly don't think Cars 1 is a classic. I don't think Ratatouille is a classic. Because I don't think that's a movie we could really like. This is the thing. A classic is a classic when you start saying lines from that movie. I don't know any lines from Ratatouille. WALL-E, I think that's like on the edge of being a classic, because I feel like there's lines in that movie and it's not really that much talking. So, but it's there. I think it's a classic. I think Coco's a classic too. Definitely not Brave. Definitely not Inside Out. I think Inside Out is the worst out of all of them. Yeah. But I think a classic has to consist of, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like social presence. Do people still talk about it? Do people like still not even reminisce on it, but just talk about how good of an impact it's had on them? Lines in the movie, are there like specific lines you remember? Specific characters you just not obsessed with, but specific characters that you hold close to and all that. You feel me? And I think that's really it. The social presence, lines, and characters that you're attached to. I think that's what like makes it a classic. And there's just some movies that don't have the classic thing, and there's some, I think Toy Story 1 through 3, Bugs Life, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Incredibles 1, WALL-E, Up, and Coco. Those 8 movies are classics. But now, I'm going to my last question. What is my top 5 Pixar movies? Oof, that's going to be tough. I honestly wrote these down, but never really looked at the movies. But I'll say number 1 is definitely Toy Story 1. I grew up off that great movie. Now this one gets tough because it's just tough. I'll say Up. There's no particular order. Oh, not gonna lie, Toy Story 1 is number 1, but the next 4 are no particular order. Up, Bugs Life, Monsters Inc., and then lastly, I'll say The Incredibles. I think that's a cool movie, to end off with. But I definitely want to hear in y'all comments what y'all top 5 Pixar movies. I'm gonna post on Instagram. I want y'all to put in the comments what are y'all top 5 Pixar movies, and what do y'all consider classics. You feel me? I really wanted to dedicate this episode to Pixar. I was really just talking about this with my my friends earlier this month, and talking about what Pixar movies are classics and stuff. And I really thought about the Pixar theory, and I thought telling y'all the Pixar theory and this podcast would be pretty dope. Hopefully y'all understood it. I tried the best of my ability to try to explain it. I never explained it to somebody. I just knew it. So hopefully y'all understood it. It's basically a whole timeline based on human interaction being the life force for artificial and animal intelligence. That's essentially what it is. This is really the end of the Bredisode. Definitely tap in, listen. Saturday, November 13th. Definitely tap in. Peace. Wow. I did that wrong. But this one.
Woo! Spider. Sex. Yeah. 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 Price I want for sure, you gon' need 3 promoters. I got got the body from Jamelis, but I had switched the motor. I got these badass bitch running around this bitch, they all the coders. Yeah. I just told her make a store run. Yeah. I just bought all the Trojans. Yeah. I told her style my mix. I told her stop telling everything she seen and told her meet me at the Ritz. Let's go. I got baguettes in the back of my ring and I went in trying to hit. I told her she gotta run through the team before she can talk to the lit. Lamb chop, I just pulled up in some food. I told her mama tie all my shoes. Showed her 2 million cash, now she woozing. 20 watches and I'm still snoozing. I had came up out the trenches, then I had beat a few bodies like Boosie. She said you Merkle, I show you my coochie. I had to sing to this bitch like Latusi. Bitch got a backwood on her nightstand, she must be fucking with Ghana. I fuck with slacks and we can't eat rats, and I came with some fucking piranhas.
All the biscotti I got in my way, need somebody grow me a tree. Came out the hood in my trunk, got a hood, now crack out the car with no keys. Beat it, she for the street knee. Only one she got hit at the spinning knee. I feel a little rich this week, influence my family to not be cheap. I told her FN on me, Carnation needs just a Glocky key. Do rollin' 60, locked in seats. Me rollin' that coupe with a bucket seat. Got it up mud like a football cleat. Got you to drop out of that photo G. Call her the plug and he know what I need. I stay underneath so we hardly speak. Yeah, I'm in New York counting money. Yeah, ain't the summer.